Good morning, my friends. Today we're gonna start morning because our process is gonna be long. Not hard, but time consuming. So I'm gonna experiment today. What is the best way and the easiest way to make bread that is delicious and great to have without too much effort? So I'm doing 3 different loaves. I'm starting with one that I'm gonna be using a sourdough starter that I already did, and the other is using Poolish. It's really easy. 1 cup of bread flour with 2/3 of a cup of water, tap. We just add a pinch of yeast and mix. Just a small pinch. As soon as all the flour is wet, just cover with saran wrap and let it rest for at least 4 hours. You can leave it also for overnight. The more time you give it, the more it will develop flavor. And one that is just putting the flour together with the water and parking it overnight and baking it the next day to see what's going to happen to that without too much effort and without pre-preparation for Poolish or sourdough starter, although those are really easy to make and they take no time. But I think aging is part of the mystic and deep flavor that bread gains as it develops. So waiting until it rises and having the time to give to the bread for it to develop those flavors is key to a really good bread. But we will be seeing also how it rises, what's the height, what's the density of the bread. All those things is gonna be showing at the end of this experiment. So here I have 1 1/3 cup of bread flour. I will add to it 2 teaspoons, very light, not packed, sea salt. And I will also add 1/4 of a teaspoon yeast. And don't put the yeast directly over the salt because the salt kills the yeast. This is something that you need to really know. So into this, which is 1 1/3 cup of flour, normally I add 1 cup and about 2 tablespoons of water because you want it to be moist. You want about a higher percentage of water into your dough. But since I'm using the Poolish, and the Poolish is very wet dough, as you see. See, look how it's runny. It's like very wet dough. So what I'm gonna do is start with 1 cup of water and see how much more the flour is gonna take. And depending on your area, if you're high altitude or not, if you are in a moist, humid area or not, it all makes a difference on the amount of water that the bread is gonna take. So you will have to use your own feel towards that. But for this, I'm sure that it's gonna take 1 cup of water, and then if it's too wet, I can also add tiny bit of flour and it's gonna work it out. And I'm not gonna use actually my hands. The easiest way in the beginning is just mixing with a spatula, just like this, until all the flour is wet. That's all you need to achieve for this first mix of the bread. Okay, here I have no dry flour left in the bowl, and I'll show you. It's all wet, and that's where I just gonna let it rest for about 15 minutes. Meanwhile, we will mix the other bowl, which has the sourdough. Let's cover this. Now we'll put this aside and we'll do this one. So I have flour, 1 1/3 cup. I will also add the 2 teaspoons of salt. Also the same thing, I'm gonna make a little hole here so it doesn't touch the salt. 1/4 teaspoon of yeast. And I will put about 20 grams or 25 grams up to 30 grams of this, which measures to be about 1/3 cup or so, or even 1/2 cup. It will work as well. So this is the sourdough starter, and into this I will also add 1 and 2 tablespoons of water, and then we'll adjust. Again, with the spatula, just break that sourdough starter into the flour and mix the water with all the rest until the same thing you want to achieve, a mass that has no dry flour in it. You can also, if you wish, put the sourdough starter into the water, dissolve it a little bit, and then add the flour. That will maybe be a little bit easier, but anyways, we're going to be kneading the dough after, so it's not going to make a difference at the end result. Each one has his own kind of best way to do it. So here I have achieved a dough that have took all the dry flour. I touch it, it's really soft, and I'll show you the bowl. Now we'll let this rest for about 15 minutes and then we'll check both doughs. Now about 15 minutes later, this is the first dough that we did with the Poolish. We let it sit because the water needs to be absorbed into the grains of the flour, and it makes it more pliable as it is completely absorbed. So now I'm gonna just take the dough and pull it and fold it on its own self, kind of. And as we go slowly, you will see how the dough will get stronger because we are pulling now, we are stretching also the gluten in the dough, so the muscle is gonna make it much stronger and more smooth as we go. So in the beginning, it's gonna be kind of a very mushy, sticky, wet feel, but it gets better as you go. So see how little effort it takes. I'm just pulling it up and hitting it back down and folding the tip I'm holding as I go. That's all you need to do for about 10 times. Do this and then put it back in the bowl. And as you see, it's already a little smoother. Now we'll let it sit and wait for about half an hour or so. So the bread making is not hard, but it's time consuming and you just need to check on it every once in a while. Pretend you have a baby or a pet or something that you're concerned about, and you just check on every half an hour or so. In the beginning, every half an hour, but later you can, let it sit overnight and it's gonna be even better. That's what we did with the other dough that I'm gonna show you. Now, this is the one that had the sourdough. The smell is different too. You can smell the sourness in it, but it's very pleasant sourness. I will do the same. I will pick the dough and fold it on itself, just like this. And as we do that, everything is gonna be more even. And it will start developing muscle as well. So do this 10 times. And I did the same thing yesterday with the dough that I haven't added Poolish or sourdough, which I'm gonna show you later. It's just sitting, I let it rise. I started it in the evening and I did this process until about 5 times or so, and then I covered it and I let it rise over on the counter. It wasn't too hot of a day. And now in the morning I deflated it, shaped it, and I let it, I put it in a bowl with flour towel to rise for baking. You can also park it in the fridge for now until you're ready to bake. So here you go. I did this and I'll let it sit about half an hour, and we'll do this again and again for 5 times max. And then we'll let it rise for baking and we'll see what the results are going to be. Time for another flip. That's how it shows when it's rested. I just pull and fold. And I'll do that 7 to 10 times. See how slowly the dough becomes smoother and easier to shape. Now we let it sit. Do the same with the sourdough. So here how it looks right now. And what I do, I take the farther part and pull it up and fold it, making sure that the surface always is outside. We let it sit. We do this process about 5 times and then we let it rise. I just want to show you also the one that I made yesterday without the Poolish and without the sourdough. Just water and flour, yeast, 1/4 teaspoon of yeast, 2 teaspoons salt, 1 1/3 flour, and 1 cup and 3 tablespoons about water. I made the dough exactly the same like here, and then I let it rest overnight. So this morning it was really, really puffy. I pushed it down, formed it, and then I put a kitchen towel with a lot of flour and I put it in to rise. And it's starting to rise right now again. And this is the bottom is side up because I made the bowl and then I put the nice surface to the bottom, because when I'm gonna flip it, I want the bottom to be the face of the bread. I'll show you when I flip it. Meanwhile, now it's like this. You have an option also to use the proofing baskets, but you don't have to. You can use any bowl with a towel that will give the shape. The intricate design on the basket, that's you're not gonna have, but if we're gonna be cutting through the dough and giving it a different type of look, it all works at the end. The most important part is the texture, the taste, and the joy out of eating these breads that you're making at home. As you see, this is the dough that I have kneaded yesterday. Today it's now 11:47, so a little bit before noon. It has risen. This side is the bottom actually, and I put it in a bowl that is lined with kitchen towel that was very well floured. This I'm gonna flip into the heated Dutch oven, and I'm gonna slice the top, slit it in a way, and then we will bake it for about 20 to 25 minutes with cover on. And then if needed, I'll take out the cover and bake 5 more minutes just to add a little bit more color. And that will be part 1 of the experiment. Here I have parchment paper. I'm gonna crumble it so it's easier to take the shape of the pot, the Dutch oven. I'm gonna put this in. I also have some cornmeal or thick semolina that I'm gonna sprinkle the bottom. I think it adds crunch and texture also to the bread. Here's the pot. Make sure that you stay safe and not touch it. Put the paper in. And a little cornmeal. And now I will gently flip this into the hot Dutch oven. Now, with a razor, you can make a whatever design you wish. This should be sufficient, and that will give the bread room to grow and to crust. And I will also spray it with some water, and the steam will help make a good crust after we take out the cover. Just like that. I will also put some semolina on top, just because we like it. Cover and put it back into the preheated oven for about 25 minutes. 20 minutes in, I took out the cover and I let it cook for about 7 to 10 minutes more. 8 minutes later, I'm gonna check it. And this how it looks. We like ours really dark, crusty, brown. Actually, on the outside it enriches flavor. So I'm gonna let it go for 5 to 7 more minutes right now. I like it really amber. Amber tend to be more brown than golden. Now this is 10 minutes after the second 10 minutes. And let's see. I would go even a little bit further. So I'm gonna do 5 more minutes. Let's see what happened here. Okay, this is perfect. I always put it here. In case you wonder what happened here, I covered the handle because it burnt from the top of my oven. It's narrow oven, so if you have also narrow oven, please cover the handle of your Dutch oven with some foil so you don't burn it. Here I have my loaf cooked. Take it out of the paper. This is the back. This is the front. Just listen to this. Nice. It's very hot. I can't even touch it. This is the one that was naturally raised for a day. Listen to the sound. I'm not gonna cut it because I want to cut the three of them together to see the difference and the textures. Let me show you what's happening while this is waiting. What's happening with the other dough. This is with the sourdough starter. I stopped folding at this point. I folded it about 5 times or so, and now I let it rise. And this is the one with the Poolish. This is a little darker because my starter, my sourdough starter is made out of whole wheat. So that's why it's darker. The Poolish I made with regular bread flour. I will bake one at a time, so we even have exact method of baking as this one, so we can have a really honest comparison. So I will start with the one that I have raised most, which is the Poolish. I'll let this sit until this is baked, and then I'll bake this one. But I wanted to show you, instead of using proofing basket, you can take a bowl, any bowl that you have in the house, put a clean kitchen tea towel in, liberally flour the towel, and now very gently, with a little push of your finger or even with the spatula. So I'll gently just pour this into my bowl here. So this side is gonna be the side down. Now I'll put this aside for now. I'll get my pot out of the oven and I'll show you how to flip it into the hot pot and put it in the oven, I'm sorry. So this is my hot pot. I'm gonna put crumbled parchment inside, and I'll do the same thing like I did before. I'll put some semolina at the bottom here, and then gently carry it and flip it slowly into the hot pot. We can also make it rustic. Just do a few cuts with your scissors. That's gonna give really nice look as well. That's not gonna make any difference in the baking. And I will sprinkle some semolina on top. I'll show it to you up close, and then I'll cover and bake. Now I'll bake it for 25 minutes to start. Last time I baked for 20 minutes, but we added some time. I'll bake for 25 minutes to see how it's gonna look, and then we'll uncover and bake a little bit more. 25 minutes later. Okay, now I'll uncover for about 10 more minutes to darken. 10 minutes later. I will give it 3 more minutes. You can take it out like this, but I like it a little bit darker. Like I said before, I like it more amber. Now it's ready. Okay, let's see. I'll take this out. Now this one was the one with the Poolish. And I have to say that the Poolish was made from 1 cup of flour, so this is a little bit bigger than the one that was raised overnight, which was 1 1/3 cup of flour, the whole thing. So here I have almost double of that, which is 1 1/3 of the flour I used, and then 1 cup of flour in the Poolish itself. So, but sounds great. Okay, I'll let it cool while I'm baking the third one, which is the sourdough. And then at the end, we will put them side by side, see the different sizes, see the different weights that they came out to be, and we'll cut them in half and see the textures from the inside. Perfect color, the way I like it. So this is the Poolish one. I'm gonna put it here. And let's get this out. Okay, so this is with the sourdough. Whoa, okay. Let it cool a little bit, and then I'll put it near the rest, and we'll showcase how they sound, how they taste, and how they look from the inside. Okay, my friends, it's time to discover what are the results of our experiment. So I have this, which is, I baked it this morning. It was naturally rising all through the night with no addition of neither Polish nor sourdough starter. And it ended up weighing 1 pound, 477 grams. This is the one with the Poolish. So the Poolish had 1 cup of flour extra because of the Poolish that was made out of that 1 cup extra flour. So it weighs 743 grams and it is about 1.5 pounds, 1.68. This is the second one. And this is the sourdough, which weighs 607 grams. It's about 1 1/3 of a pound. It has a nice height to it. It's a smaller loaf. So this and this almost should be the same size. This is a little bit different. So we see the one that raised during the night without the sourdough starter. It has a little bit more volume. So here we go, we're starting to find out. This is about 1.5 size of those because of the Polish that we added. Let's cut them and see. So I'll cut. This is the sourdough. Oh, it smells so good. Smells so good. That's how it is, the texture. And I'll put a close-up for those. This is the Poolish. It also sounds great. And it looks like a nice texture inside. And this is the one that we just put together and let it do its magic on its own. And this is the texture. So I'll start with the sourdough. I'm gonna cut a little piece because I want also to try to see how stretchy it is. Yummy. I'm also tasting the yummy olive oil. I need to taste it on its own. Very good. And this is the Poolish. I love it too. This is a little bit more sour, but pleasantly sour. Had a little bit more rich, deep, aged flavor. I think everyone who ages becomes more interesting and better. Same with wine, same with cheese. Here we go, bread. How about humans? I bet it's the same story. Okay, this is the Polish. It's good, very good. It doesn't have complex flavor. It's delicious bread, crusty, Very good, but it doesn't have the complexity. This is the natural, just grow on your own kind of bread. The texture is great. The flavor is very good too. It's simple. This is good. This is like the Italian normal everyday bread, I would call it. It's delicious. Would you like to test? Okay. Now I'm gonna dip with the olive oil because this I ate with olive oil and I tasted only the olive oil. Very good. All of them are good. Complexity, I like actually this one, which is the sourdough starter. I would go for that. Sourdough is not hard to make, the starter. And you don't need to do much for it. You saw, I just flip them a few times during the day while I'm sitting. It's not much of kneading and it grows on its own, and then you just bake it and you have a great, delicious bread. If you don't have a starter, then you can start with a Poolish or with make it on your own. This is our results. Please give me your opinion. If you have any questions, please forward them to me and I'll answer every one of them. Thank you.